All righty, perfect. And we are now starting to be live on here. It takes a couple seconds for everything to get all moved up, but we are connected into Facebook and YouTube. Pam Johnson-Bennett, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Of course, it's 95 degrees here, but I'm good.
Now, where are you coming to us from? I know we've got everyone all over the country during these times.
I'm from Nashville,
Oh, well, I've heard that
and
is an absolutely gorgeous city.
it is. I love it here.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we have started to get some folks. We're starting to get in of people. Thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday afternoon. My name is Dr. Chris Menges, and I have with me Pam Johnson-Bennett. And she is the fantastic author of some wonderful books, and it's a renowned cat behavior consultant. But first, before we roll in, before we do the long intro, because it is a long intro, because you have a fantastic and esteemed career, I do have to say a couple things before we start. Like I said, here at Basepaws, we love to do this webinar series to bring some great trusted resources about behavior and medicine in the feline space to you. That being said, all of our webinars are general education webinars. So if you do have any specific advice that may change, you feel like you change medication or food or anything in your household, please consult your local veterinarian first before you make the change to make sure that that works with your cat's schedule as well and its medications. All right, so now to roll into the good stuff. With me here is Pam Johnson-Bennett. Pam Johnson-Bennett has had a esteemed career of 37 years. She has been a cat behavior consultant as well as an author and a lecturer, well known for her books Think Like a Cat, Catwise, and then Cat versus Cat, which is having an updated version that comes out in September of this year. Now, there is so much that I'm missing. I know I am, and so I would love to hear a little bit more from you about your career, about how you got started and how you got to where you are today.
Well, it was not a career that I intended. I was living in New York City and planned to be a musician, and I adopted two kittens, and this was a long time ago. And I proceeded to mess things up. I didn't understand their behavior. And when I went to look for help, there wasn't any. Now behavior is so in the forefront, but there weren't books. Veterinarians were focusing on medicine. Behavior was not really, front and center. And so I figured if I'm going to solve their problems, I better learn to think like a cat. And that's how I started, really using the cats as teachers. And apparently I did a good enough job that when I went back to my veterinarian, he actually didn't believe they were the same cats that had been in there a year before.
Mm-hmm.
And I started getting calls from other veterinarians to work with their cats, their clients' cats. And I made a decision to either starve as a musician and not make much money because I wasn't very good, or I could switch careers and maybe make a living helping cats. And that's how it began. And it just kind of snowballed. And then eventually clients were telling me, you ought to write a book. So I started my first book, and it just kind of fell into place. And now I'm so happy to see so much attention on behavior. But years ago, when I started out, it was something that was actually laughed at and ridiculed. People thought, they called you the weird cat lady and all of that.
Well, you have a mantra that you use throughout your career. That's think like a cat. And, that it really was revolutionary at the time in many ways because of that behavioral, that, like you mentioned, that gap, that focus on medicine and the lack of the focus on behavior and how cats adjusted. And so, kind of where did that all come from? I mean, where did that inspiration come from?
Well, a lot of behavior that was available that I saw was dog behavior, the dog training. And a lot of it focused on reprimand, getting control, having a well-behaved, well-trained animal. And that didn't make sense to me because with cats, it was, we're missing the motivation. There has to be a reason why the cat is biting. There has to be a reason why, if the cat is cleared of a medical issue, why he's still urinating outside of the litter box. I'm missing something. So I just started telling myself, start thinking like a cat and looking at the world and looking at the environment from the cat's point of view. And sometimes it became quite literal, in that when I would work with clients in the beginning, sometimes, and I know if I have clients watching, they remember those days where I actually made them get down on the floor and look at the environment from the cat's point of view, because we come across so large and imposing to them, and we come at them with reprimands. So sometimes I had clients get down there and look at this world, this environment we created. And that has changed everything for me. When, no matter what I'm facing with cats, I try to look at it from their point of view, because if you think about it, there is always a reason for a behavior. The cat would not repeat a behavior if it didn't have an outcome that worked. It may not be one we like. For example, the cat scratches the sofa instead of the scratching post. We think that's a bad behavior. Oh, that's a bad cat. He's being destructive. But maybe it's because the sofa is the only thing that's meeting his needs, because it's tall and it's sturdy, it's covered in a rough material, or it's located where he wants. Maybe the scratching post that we bought is this wobbly little scratching post that doesn't serve a purpose. So it's looking at a problem from the cat's point of view, and it becomes very eye-opening.
And that is such a fantastic revelation to have, I think, as an owner, and as as a cat guardian from there. Now, I'm going to interrupt us real quick, people. If you do have questions as we start to roll in, start to put them in your comments, and like and subscribe to Basepaws as well. But put your questions in the comments, and we'll get to those as we start to go through and talk from there. Now, like I said, that revelation is an extremely interesting revelation, right? It changes your perspective on how the cat is involved. And I know much of the behavior problems, and you already touched on them, are kind of litter box and not going within the litter box. Kind of what is that sense, kind of how does that help change your perspective towards a litter box when you start to think like that?
Well, you start looking at how you've been viewing it. If we're viewing litter box problem as the cat being bad, as he's house soiling, and the term that we tend to use, that hopefully people are getting away from now, is inappropriate elimination. And there's nothing inappropriate about it. It's very appropriate, under whatever circumstances. But if you think like a cat and you look at the litter box environment from the cat's point of view, you start to see where you may have fallen short. And I'm not, trying to blame or shame cat owners. It's that we don't think of things. We don't like the litter box. We kind of view it as a box you fill with a substrate, you stick in the corner, and the cat automatically will use it. But we don't always hold up our end bargain in terms of keeping it clean, making sure it's the right size or style for the cat, or that it's safe. That's something that's always been very shocking when I go to clients' houses and I say, this litter box environment is not safe for your cat. And they'll say, what do you mean? They're in the house, nothing's going to get them. Well, the cat doesn't know that. Or maybe it's the dog or another cat or a child that is interrupting or scary when the cat's using the litter box, because you have to admit that's a very vulnerable time. So when you look at it from that holistic point of view, is it the right litter box? Is it clean? Is it in the right location? Do we have enough litter boxes? Are there environmental things going on? You really start to see where we could improve the environment for them.
Absolutely. Now, we've got a lot in there to unpack right now, just from there. And I'm gonna start us back at the words that you just said, safe. When we start to say safe, what makes a litter box safe? How can people look in their own homes and start to look around, and what are all the factors that go into understanding that security?
And that's usually the thing we fall short with. You
Mhm.
know, we have this in common with cats. We both, when it's time to eliminate, we both want an area that's clean and private, but we forget that cats can be very vulnerable in that environment. For example, you think, well, I want my cat to have something very private. So I get a covered litter box or I put it in a closet and I put a pet door in there. And we think the cat likes that because that's very, very private.
Mhm.
But maybe what you've actually done is set the cat up to be ambushed by another cat in the household. He
Mhm.
doesn't have escape potential. So when a cat is in the litter box, he's very vulnerable. And if there's any tension in your multi-cat household, if you have a very friendly, happy dog who just, whenever he hears the cat scratching in the litter, he wants to go check it out, uh, that tells the cat, maybe this isn't a safe place to go. Maybe it's better if I go on the carpet in the bedroom because
Mhm.
no one will find me there.
Mhm.
So safety is very important. You have to look at escape potential. And I tell clients it is, an open litter box so that the cat has plenty of visual advantage to see who's coming. Put the litter box on the opposite wall where the entrance is so the cat again has more visual warning time. And make sure you have litter boxes, especially in a multi-cat household, all scattered around so that someone doesn't get trapped. People will put litter boxes in the laundry room at the end of the hall or down a basement where the cat has to go downstairs, and maybe he gets stuck down there because another cat comes on the stairway and there's no exit for him.
Mhm.
So you have to look at the litter box not just from, am I keeping it clean? Is it big enough for the cat? Will he like it? Is he going to feel safe there?
Absolutely. And so just to kind of like say, sum up all of that, when you talked about that escape potential, that means the close escape potential itself, the moving, the ways to get out of the litter box itself. So very, very, and then also the longer with that, like you mentioned, with the hallways or the end of the laundry room or the basement where there is only one way in or out. And that's, so let's take a look, remember folks, to take a look at the wider floor plan on there, and how your cat experiences it from there. Okay, all right. Oh my goodness. Now you also mentioned multiple litter boxes, particularly for multi-cat households. And so, do you have
That's very
a
important.
general rule of thumb or that you follow when you do this?
There should be one more litter box, and you have cats,
Mhm.
and they should be scattered around. I'll go to people's houses and they'll have 6 cats and they'll be so proud of the fact that they have 8 or 10 litter boxes, but they're all lined up in one room. And so you have to look at your environment and look at the core areas that individual cats may claim. Maybe you have one cat who really tends to hang out more in the master bedroom and one who likes being in the living room, and you want to make sure that the litter boxes are located in each cat's preferred core area so that maybe a lower ranking, more timid cat doesn't have to pass a more assertive cat's area just to eliminate. That way you're reducing a lot of the stress. And
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that you can assign litter boxes. It's not like the cat who tends to hang out in the bedroom will never be able to use the laundry room litter box. It's just you're giving them choice. And when cats have choice, oh my gosh, the stress that gets reduced there. It's when they don't have any option. If the only litter box means if the cat is going to use that litter box, he's got to pass his enemy and might get attacked. Well, he's either, if you're lucky, he will use the litter box, but he's going to experience a lot of stress in the process, and it does nothing to help the relationship between those two cats. Or he may end up deciding he's going to go on the carpet or on the floor where it's safer. But if you give him the choice of another litter box where it feels safer, then it helps everything. It helps his stress level go down. It helps the relationship between the cats improve because no one has to stand guard anymore. And
Mhm.
those are things we don't think about when we're dealing with litter box. We don't think of the dynamics of the household.
Well, and those are so important. Like you mentioned, we kind of say litter boxes, but there's so many things that go into this, right? It's such a focal, well, necessary part of a cat's life on there too, that it does is affected by everything on there. So I'd love if you could talk a little bit about. I know you mentioned core territories on there, just a little bit about cats, and I don't know if you have. I'm asking a very big general question, but about cats and territories, and kind of just a little bit about the social dynamic that can happen in multi-cat households.
Well, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking cats aren't social animals, and they are, but their social structure is different. It's built around resources and the availability of resources. If you cut out that availability and you make it that they have to compete, then there's going to be a lot of stress. But if you think of an outdoor environment, a free roaming environment, you have a colony of cats, but they can decide how big that space is going to be between each cat. When we bring cats indoors, there's a limit inside our walls as to where their space is going to be. So territories end up overlapping. You may have neutral areas, the hallway or the living room, but then you may have core areas that each cat kind of claims. And that can maintain these, but you want to make sure you've allowed for, setting up feeding stations, litter boxes, bedding, places to play where each cat feels more comfortable. And then that way, if they want to engage, they can. So one of the keys to having a very happy multi-cat household is giving them choice so that the cats have the choice to engage or to avoid. But if you take away that choice to avoid, that's where a lot of stress and fighting, and that keeps me in business because people are calling with multi-cat aggression problems.
Now, would you say that kind of that multi-cat is your most common problem that you are asked about?
It's usual litter box is number one,
Mhm.
but that tension underneath is very often multi-cat tension. The reason the cat isn't using the litter box is because of something going on with the dynamics. There are very few times when I've gone into a home, and it has happened, but not that often, and said within the first 5 minutes, "Oh, well, I know what your problem is. You're not scooping the litter box enough." That's not usually what it is. It's kind of peeling away the layers of the onion, find, okay, what cats aren't getting along, how are they not having choice, how can we improve that relationship? Because sometimes the litter box problem is not the main problem. It's the thing we don't like. I don't like when a cat is, urinating on the carpet. But maybe that's the secondary problem to the fact that you have cats who aren't getting along and they have no choice. They have no way to avoid each other or live in harmony together. So don't just look at a problem as if, oh, well, that's it. I just have a litter box problem, because you may have a multi-cat aggression problem.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, it may just be the sign and symptom that we
So
see.
litter boxes aren't so simple.
They are not. They are not. And I know we're going to talk a lot about litter boxes
Right.
and feel like we barely even started the conversation all at the same time. But I know there's so many. We started to talk about these multi-cat and these aggressions and how it's very multi-layered and tiered. But some of the simple things I want to make sure we cover, kind of the simple things like the easy 5-minute problems that we make sure that people know as well. And so. You mentioned the open topped litter boxes on there. From a litter box kind of size and shape, do you have a preference or that you see working the best?
Well, if we're thinking like a human, we want a box that's covered and out of sight. But if we're thinking like a cat, which is what we should be doing,
Mhm.
we want a box that is open, that is 2.5 times the size of the cat from tip of the nose to base of the tail. He has plenty of time plenty of room to get in there and eliminate a couple of times and still have a lot of fresh, clean litter. You want an uncovered box. Now, I know that there are people sitting there going, well, I have a covered box and my cat doesn't have a problem. That may be, that's fine. Maybe your cat has adjusted to that. Maybe there is no stress in your household, so he doesn't feel tense. But for the most part, you want it to be uncovered for a couple of reasons. As we mentioned, the escape potential, but also feel cramped in there because many of the covered boxes are really too small for the size of the cat. And that's where you may see back end of the cat sticking out, or the back end may be in the litter box. The front paws are out on the floor because he can't get all of the cat into the litter box. And then the other thing is covered boxes, they tend to be out of sight, out of mind, and we don't check them and scoop them often enough. So if it's open, when you pass by, you're more likely to scoop it.
And I'm sorry about this. I'm seeing a little bit of technical difficulties on there, so I'm so sorry if there was a little bit of a downtime in there, folks. But yes, that is such great advice for all of those things. All right, so you mentioned that on there, and even those covered litter boxes. I think sometimes in my mind it reminds me of potentially trying to use the restroom on an airplane. And I'm a little bit of a taller person, and that may be kind of that cramped space if we don't have one that's big enough. I'm not sure I would want to use it all the time as well on there from that standpoint. Now, you did mention so we've got the kind of the ideal right here, the ideal, an open, uncovered 2.5 times the size of the cat from the tip of the nose to the base of the tail on that standpoint. And then we've already talked about security on there and number of boxes. Now, when we do have litter box problems, what are some potential, besides multi-cat aggression, what are some potential issues of the cat that may be underlined when the cat is going to the bathroom outside of their normal litter box space?
Exactly.
And we are actually having issues. I can't hear you as well. We're seeing your video, but we're not yet really hearing your audio on there. Sorry, folks, if you could
The way
bear
I
with
tell
us
people to do
real
it is
quick. Oh,
3
slow.
steps. The first, ever there's a litter box issue, the first thing to address is medical. You want to make sure there isn't a medical problem, even if you are sure it's behavioral. You want to rule that out because you don't want your cat to suffer 1 minute longer than necessary. So that's number one. Number two, look at the litter box setup itself. Just the basics. Is it clean? Are you scooping at least twice a day? Are you completely emptying the litter out and replacing with fresh? Are you using enough litter? Are you using too much? Is it
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry about that, folks. Pam's just going to hop back out and hop back in with us while we're working on the audio from there. And so we'll get to the questions, particularly about those. Thank you all so much, Jennifer and Brenda, for letting us know that the delay was starting to happen. We were starting to see it on our end, but we wanted to make sure that it's doing that from us as well. And we'd love to get around some issues and talk about some questions from Yvonne and Gary. I know we were about to get into the scooping, Gary, but we'll get there in just a second. So thank you all again so much for joining us today. And it's a pleasure to see you all. How many, like I say, we're so excited that you all are able to come back and join us. How many folks is their first time here as well? I know I see some repeat joiners back in the crowd on there, and we're so excited to always have those from there. Let's see. Looks like she's joining right back in now, and we'll get rolling again in just a second. All right, now let's see. We've also got some great questions just to let you all know the topics that we will be covering when we get back in there. Beth has a fantastic question about her male cat that puts his tail all the way up, so he's peeing up the side. And so he does not squat like normal. And that is a great behavior question. Like you mentioned, he's been cleared of urinary or medical problems by the vet itself, by your vet. And so when we start to look at those and behavior questions, we need to start really looking at the cats themselves. Let's see. Oh, and looks like we have also some questions from, hiding from there. From someone like from Cornell, who has a cat that's been cleared of UTI or crystals, and who's having some issues about half the time as well. So again, when we start to look at behavioral and resource choosing as well, we'll talk a little bit about that as I hide my face. And it's so fantastic to see you here. I know. Thank you, Cornell, for showing up and coming on out today. Let's see. I'm missing my guest, and I'm so glad y'all are still sticking around with me. I know it is fantastic. Oh, and Yvonne, thank you for coming with us first time. This is also our first time for having technical problems, but we'll get through them and we'll work with this from here. Pam is loading back in now, and we'll test her up in just a second on here. Perfect. All right, Pam, are you back with us here?
Yeah. So much for technology.
All right. Now, I know you gave us a fantastic answer about scooping and litter boxes, and we really only heard a part of it. And so if you don't mind starting to look at scooping, and I know this kind of sounded like we were about to relate a question like that from Gary of how do you know when it's ready to completely replace the litter in a box as well. So I'm going to let you hop right back into the scooping from there, and we'll keep going.
Okay. The 3 steps are, number 1, make sure there isn't a medical problem for any litter box issues. You want to rule that out. Number 2 is checking the litter box setup itself, making sure it's appealing from all aspects, everything we talked about, location, number of boxes, cleanliness. And then if you're still having a litter box issue, look at the dynamics of the household. What's going on? Is there and have there been a lot of changes in the house? What is happening that's stressing the cat out? So those are the 3 steps. And in answer to the question that we got, if you're using a scoopable litter, then no matter what the brand says on the box about you never have to change out the litter, you do. So you scoop at least twice a day, more often if you can, and completely empty the litter out and scrub the box out at least once a month. More so if your cat more or you have more cats using one box. So you have to, because cats and they eliminate, and you can't guarantee that they're not going to move all the litter and eliminate on the floor of the litter box itself. So you want to make sure you're completely scrubbing that box.
Well, Pam, one thing I am going to request from you right now, it looks like we're still having a little bit of delay on there. If you can stop your camera real quick, and we'll run a little bit of audio and let some of those things catch up real fast. Then we may get that all that good voice audio from there. I'm so sorry about this. Now let's see. All righty. So you mentioned those 3 steps, and those are fantastic 3 steps. We have our medical problems first. Always look at medical problems, and then looking into the structure of the infrastructure that's in place, the litter box infrastructure, as well as then thirdly, the social dynamics itself. Now, sometimes we have questions that come up like this, that come up from Beth. Beth has a male cat that uses the box and puts his tail all the way up, so he's peeing up the side. He doesn't squat like normal cats. While he's been cleared of any urinary medical problems by her vet, problem number 1, what does that start to think, or you start to think about in a scenario like this? Now, I'm still unable to hear you here. On there. Oh my goodness. Let's see.
Well, if it's a covered box, he may feel more comfortable, kind of backing up against the side. Some cats will spray in the litter box, and if that's the case, you're very lucky, because it's better they spray in the box than outside of the box. About how many cats there are, it may be that
All right. I'm sorry about this, folks. We're losing Pam a little bit again here on there. We are so sorry about this. We started to have some really great questions come through. We mentioned, we were talking from about Beth and from Gary, Aaron, Cornell, and unfortunately we are having some full technical difficulties on there. Now, as I said, this is our first time dealing with our technical difficulties there, so unfortunately we don't quite have a plan in place from there. I can talk a little about those, but I would love for you to be able to get the feedback from Pam Johnson-Bennett herself. So if you all have any questions, please post your questions right now. What we'll do is we'll get with Pam, make a little video offline that's not streaming, so that we can make sure that the video is perfect, so that we have your answers for you. Get those up to YouTube and send those to you all on there. Oh my goodness. Like I said, I'm extremely sorry that we're having these technical issues today, and that we can't address these questions right now for you. Let me see if I can get Pam back one more time, but unfortunately we may have to do a delayed redo as we go forward here. All right, Pam, we're going to try one more time on here to check the audio. I'm going to have you check real quick just to say, how are you doing today? How is the audio looking? Oh, it looks like it's still coming in a little slow, and that we can't fully hear you on there. People, thank you. So what we're going to do, thank you so much. We're going to get these up here. We've been talking with Pam Johnson-Bennett, who on her website is www.catbehaviораssociates.com. And while that is one great place to reach her, another great place that she is active on social media and continues to work as well is her Facebook page. We'll get this link out here as well, and that's www.facebook.com/Pam.
Okay, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Oh my goodness, you're coming through very delayed. I just heard that you said you could hear me now. So I'm not sure how much time has passed, but I know there has been a fair amount. So let's see. So this is her Facebook, and that's facebook.com/Pam.Johnson-Bennett. Now, as we mentioned, she is the fantastic author of a variety of books about cat behavior, and such as Cat Wise. And Cat Wise is available now. It's from Amazon.com or bookstores everywhere, provided that your bookstore is open. Your local bookstore is open right now. And Pam, I would love if you were able to have a conversation between us two, do a quick little video and answer some of these questions that we got in the comments from there to fully go from there. So people, if you are seeing this, you're starting to see this on delay, leave your comments in the post. We'll get more questions and have another little video up and then approach it from there. Oh my, all righty. Well, all right. Well, folks, thank you again for coming out and supporting Basepaws and the litter box issues in cats. And thank our host now live and then also delayed as well. So thank you all have a great Saturday, and please stay safe out there.